Black's in our brand portfolio too. And look at the bottom of your shoes. Okay, there we go. There's the red. Okay. We're on brand
Black
again.
and red.
Awesome, awesome. Good to see you.
It's great to be here. Thank you for having me.
Sure. So Courtney, Blackstone, I know a lot about it, but a lot of people don't. So can you help people understand what Blackstone is, what Blackstone does, and why, and something about the size and the magnitude of it? Give us some context.
Be happy to. I think if you're like my family, you're like Blackstone, BlackRock, Black Pebble, like what is this Blackstone? Blackstone is the world's largest alternative asset manager. Like, well, all right, that's a big number, $1.1 trillion of assets, big number. But to bring it down to what we do and how we work together in my role, that includes 250 portfolio companies. Hilton used to be a Blackstone portfolio company. One of our best investments, and UKG is our largest private equity investment. But companies like Supergoop and Spanx, small consumer, UKG, Copeland, which is the largest or a leader in HVAC. So we've got all these companies, Michael. Across the companies, annual revenue last year was about $225 billion, 700,000 employees, and that's where this all fits in, which is this beautiful way for us to see what's happening across geographies, sectors, stages of growth. And we pull the data, we ask for data, we collect the data, we analyze the data, and we use that data both to help us invest. So for example, we were able to call inflation 18 months early, not because we're brilliant, we have the data from all of our companies. And so we're able to use the data to help our companies operate more effectively, get ahead of things. So it's a really unique vantage point to be in, and it's human, and it's 700,000 employees. So that's Blackstone.
Okay, a major source of capital for growth for businesses. Why are companies leaning on private capital more now rather than IPOs?
I think this surprised me. You and I talked about this, and I did some research. The number of, well, if you look today, 86% of companies over $250 million of revenue are private. 86%. The number of public companies peaked in 1996 at 7,000. Today, that number stands at 4,300. So the world is more private, is staying private, is going private. Why is that? I think in the old days, you had to go public to access capital. And because today there are so many private sources of credit, of capital, Blackstone included, you don't have to go public. And there are benefits that we love. A lot of our companies go public. We take companies private. We brought Cvent and Rover and Smartsheet public to private. But there are benefits to being private. Allows you to kind of bring the curtain down. We've got these ambitious agendas and growth plans, and it allows us just to focus on what we say create long-term value in a short-term horizon. And so it allows us to do that without having to worry about quarterly returns and numbers and reporting and some of the compliance and some of these things. So I think when folks are surprised, private equity backed, and I often will hear, especially with boards, want to be on a public board, understand that. But actually, if you look at the direction of travel, it's private and will continue. But I think that's a surprising trend for many.
I was talking yesterday to a couple of people that are here from they are running a private equity firm, and they were surprised when I told them how committed Blackstone is to culture. They were like, "What?" So I'm not throwing any shade, and neither were they. They just didn't know.
I was before I
didn't
joined.
know. Okay,
Yeah.
but talk about the importance of culture at Blackstone and customers of ours, and also the importance of it through your portfolio.
Yeah. Jen said it, and I've stolen it from her. She beat me to it today, but numbers follow people. We believe that. It starts at our firm, right? Blackstone itself. You'd be surprised. We have extraordinary people, but extraordinarily nice people. And so we say what makes a high-performance culture is not just having lots of smart people. But, Michael, if you look in private equity, and if you look at in business, and we've done the analysis, when deals go well, it's because we had a killer leadership team and a high-performance organization. When capital is impaired, when things go off the rails, deals fail, it's often we did not have the right leadership team and organization. And you say, okay, why is that? Well, kind of obvious, but actually what we're trying to do is pacey, it's ambitious. We're trying to drive these extraordinary, as I say, long-term results in a short-term horizon. So we need leadership that is aligned to what we're trying to do, not just generic great leadership, but have they done it? And we'll get a little bit into what we look for. But we also need highly committed, engaged organizations that are aligned with the mission, engaged, showing up every day, passionate, confident, committed. Otherwise, we can't get to the other side. And so we'll get into, we love great places to work, and we've doubled the number of our companies and seen the extraordinary results that come with that. But we also use engagement. This surprises people, but you and I mean, you've been saying this before, most of us. We look at employee engagement scores in all of our companies as a leading indicator of business health. That surprises people, like this touchy-feely. But we look at, and one of the things, we don't mandate a lot across our portfolio companies, but we say you need to do an engagement survey. Obviously, you need to read it out and act on it. But we look at those numbers, like we do attrition and a few other, as leading indicators. We've had businesses that are performing beautifully well. You look at the financials, you look at some of the leading indicators around business health engagement, and when those are dropping, there's problems around the corner, and it allows you to intervene and hopefully avoid those. So it's the only way we can do what we do. We use it as a tool to guide what's happening in the business. And like the secret recipe for success is great fit-for-purpose leadership and high-performing cultures and teams.
So let's focus on leadership, and tell people something about your role there and what you look for to get that leader that's going to create that great culture.
So the role I'm in, as I always say, the seat I rent, is this wonderful role which is primarily focused on all things people and human capital in our portfolio of 250 companies. The most important thing we can get right is the leadership. So when we're looking at investing in a company, we will diligence the company. All sorts of diligence, lots of commercial diligence. But we come in there and actually say, what is the team in place? Obviously, they've done something extraordinarily well that we're interested in buying the company, but are they fit for purpose for that next chapter, right? And so we assess them against what is it we need that next team to do. In every investment, there are a couple things. There's like 2 to 3 to 4 things, we call them value creation levers, that we need that leadership team to do. And we less assess were they successful in what they did, but can they do what we need them to do? So we assess, and in many cases, the team that's in place are great. The incumbents, sometimes we add roles, we support them, we scaffold them. In some cases, they're not. Either they've opted out, they ran their marathon and they're ready, or they're not necessarily right for the next investment. But we focus a lot on, and not just the CEO. We believe, obviously, the CEO, she or he, is absolutely essential, but we look at the C-suite, there's often new roles, and then we look a couple levels down. And it also extends to the board. Again, building the chair, the board, all of those things in leadership. And what surprises folks, I think, is beyond all of that. And then we get into the org health. During diligence, we're looking at things, we're scraping Glassdoor, we're conducting referencing, forensic referencing. We're trying to understand, is it a high-performance culture? Do they have the capacity to do what we need them to do? Again, this pacey, high ambition. And we're not necessarily looking for that the day one they have it, but can we get them there? Because if not, we won't get there. So leadership matters. It's the difference maker, but it's not alone. As we say, it's a team sport.
Well, if you think about the behaviors of a leader, what are the things that are attractive to you and the things that are like, next?
There are a lot of those. You and I have talked about this.
Yeah.
I think people think, private equity, you're looking for track record and results and financials. We care about that. Was somebody successful? And again, context matters. Were they successful in, I would say context matters for everything, but when were they successful? What was the context, the team, the situation, all of that? But we look at intrinsic traits, motivations a lot. We often talk about what's under the layer. We care about things like resilience, the ability. This is a pacey, high ambition sport. We need folks who are resilient, can bounce back. We look for people who are learners. Is something that will resonate with everyone. If we have folks with low self-awareness, right, can't talk about mistakes and learnings and what they're going to do differently. This learning, this listening, right, this chief listening. Can they listen to others? Do they seek others? it's very much what you always say about we're looking for leaders who build followership. And the way to build followership is trust. And trust is a combination of transparency and vulnerability. And we are assessing for all of that. We need to build followership. We need leaders. We aren't expecting leaders who have all the answers. We worry when somebody has all the answers. We're looking for people who, A, know when they don't have the answers, know where to go, and know when to ask the questions. They're vulnerable. They know what they know. They know how to seek out the answers. They know how to bring in their team. They build diverse, inclusive, but more than anything, they build a culture of trust and transparency. That's then this formula of engagement. But I think it surprises folks that how deep we go in understanding motivations, how they operate, and probably more than anything, can they learn? Are they open to feedback and partnership?
Yeah. Now, what's an indicator for you that somebody is a learner?
Simple. Let's talk about a mistake.
Yeah.
Let's talk about when you didn't get it right.
Yeah.
One, you'd be surprised how many people say, I don't really have anything. That's been a stellar track record. That's kind of the next, right?
Actually, I wouldn't be surprised.
That's the really?
But super
Nothing?
point. Yeah.
That's a next.
Yeah.
Then there's the I made a mistake, but it wasn't my fault. I hired the wrong people, right? That's a good one too. My mistake was letting Susie or Johnny have it. What lights us up and we all want is, look, I haven't gotten it all right. If you're taking risks and ambitious, you're making mistakes. What we want are people who acknowledge it and learn from them. And so the bonus is, let me tell you when I didn't get it right. Here was the situation. Here's where I messed up. What you really want is here's what I learned and here's what I do differently as a result. As a result now, I'm always careful of this. I double check that. I surround myself with people who call me on it, who mitigate my flatter spots. That's what I'm looking for. In conversations with, we'll do this with candidates. We bring in new information. Do they assimilate the new information? Are they holding tight to their position? Right? Are they able to adapt? Right now, the disruption, the velocity, there is nothing that is staying the same. And so we'll often say, well, let us introduce something new. This just came in, or here's some new data. Are they cognitively, are they able to capture that, assimilate, pull it together, and adapt? If they're still back and clawing onto that original point of view, we're not even open, again, we don't have learning agility.
Yeah. I'm glad this is videoed because I'd like to be taking notes because you're laying out the script to success. And so not everybody's going to be, a CEO of a Blackstone portfolio company, but we have an audience full of people working in companies, and everybody wants to grow. Everybody wants to do that. And so to me, you're talking about the things that that make you attractive so that people want you to grow as well. You're talking about humility. You're talking about learning, being able to confront your mistakes and talk about them, to move forward without fear that if I tell them about my mistake, then they're not gonna, okay, so do you have the perseverance to go through that uncomfortable moment of sometimes describing the darkest moment maybe of your career? But for our community of growers and a few other 1,000 people that are zooming in, what advice do you have for people who really want to grow their careers?
Before I answer that, I do want to hit something that I think surprises folks that I was remiss in not. I think it surprises when we look at building high-performing, extraordinary companies, Michael. We look at, obviously, CEO and the board. We look at CFO. Obviously, that matters. But what surprises folks is that triad. We absolutely focus on getting great CHROs. It's the only way they're the linchpin of all of the things we're talking about. So we talk about the triad a lot. And again, if people are like private equity, Blackstone, it's the linchpin. It's the linchpin on all the change, all the things we're talking about, all the data and insight. So I think that's one just relative to that. But growing. I think it's being open-minded. You often hear folks who, and we meet a lot of folks who have had incredible careers and they've been on ladders, right? These linear ladders of success, bigger scale, bigger scope, bigger, more. We love, and some of our highest performing people, just in general, have been on a lattice. They've gone left, they've gone right, they've taken risks. They've followed people they believed in. They were curious about a sector. It's less this picture-perfect linear.
That's great.
And with that, the risk, the learning, the greatest growth often comes in those uncertain. I mean, I always say, part of the reason I took this role is uncomfortable. I was repotting, and it's uncomfortable to be 30 years into your career into something that you have some strengths, but it is unknown. But that's where the greatest growth comes from. And so I want folks, whether it's an assignment, raising their hand for an assignment, for applying for a role that maybe isn't necessarily linear, but they're curious, taking a class in something. But it's that uncomfortable, it's that everyone I think knows what we mean when you're a little out of your depth, you're uncomfortable, but boy, is that the most exciting growth spurt that comes. And it doesn't mean it always leads to success. Some of the greatest lessons and growth come from lessons learned and mistakes. And so that's what we're looking for. We're encouraging folks to explore, to be open-minded. Kind of winning in life and work and all of those things comes with that. And when folks have the kind of the linear, and some folks have done really well linearly, but I just don't think that's how we learn, that's how you gain skills. I just don't think that's the name of the game anymore.
Well, thank you very much. You dropped gold nuggets all over the place. I'll watch the recording and write them down. Please give Courtney a round of applause.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.